All right, guys, we're back. Part 2.
Mm-hmm.
As promised, we are back a week later. I'm here with Mr. Briscoe and Mr. Piersee. We're going to discuss some religious matters, I guess, right?
Mm-hmm.
All right, and I'm very honored that our first two-parter is happening with you guys. I'm very happy.
Privilege is all ours.
And I'm very excited to get into this. So, okay. So before we even begin, so existentialism as a definition, what do we have?
So we have a long one, or we can go...
Give me a shorthand.
All right.
Yeah, definitely give me a shorthand.
Our viewers don't want to read.
Okay, existentialism is a form of philosophical inquiry that explores the problem of human existence and centers on the lived experience of the thinking, feeling, acting individual. What do you take about that?
So, I am very big, and at the end of the day, I am known for understanding life as a joke, right? And I still have yet to truly understand something that's the same views as me, but still, I live my life day in, day out by finding humor in everything that I do, right? But still, at the end of the day, I enjoy my craft, right? I enjoy medicine. I enjoy doing what I love and everything else. But still, I will find humor in the darkest depths and everything else, right? And that's why I love looking into nihilism and existentialism. Excuse me if I'm saying it wrong, because I'm sorry, I'm retarded. But I say existentialism because it's a lot of people say that is the opposite of nihilism. But nihilism is a sense of understanding that it is purely just suffering that we're going through, and that there's nothing more than just suffering. And as much as I agree with that, at the same time that with existentialism, it's understanding that, hey, look, we exist. This is who we are, and we will continue with that. And everything from then on is the byproduct of who we became, right? It's we understand that the Bible was not written by God or any deity. It was written by another man, right? And because of that is one of the things that I love thinking about and talking about, because I'm not a very religious dude. Never have been, probably never will be, but it's the same time, it's just one of those things that it's just, I love hearing different people. I've gone to mass before, right? I'm not some dude that's never seen the other sides, right? I've looked into other views of Judaism, Buddhism, and stuff like that, and I've also done my fair share of and I'm also going to get back into it of meditation, right? And just understanding the self-understanding, but that falls back into existentialism, right? And understanding that you just purely exist, right?
So my first kind of thought on that would be, okay, so myself, I'm very much a Christian. I'm not the most perfect Christian. I've made very mistakes, obviously. But I align myself as much as I can with Christianity. But my thought process is very much realism. And realism, as I digest it, is I take things that happen to me at face value. Mm-hmm. And I take that, and I'm okay, this happened. Is it positive or negative? And no matter which option it is, how can I get the best out of it? That's not to say I'm an optimist, meaning you can find perfect things or great things out of everything, because you can't. You simply cannot. Mm-hmm. But out of, I would say, 90 to 95% of things in my life, especially now, I take it, I'm okay, these things are happening. What can I do to at least get something minuscule out of it? And what can I do? Can I move my life forward? So my question, I guess, initially would be, so you say existentialism is, we're here, we exist, now we move forward. Why wouldn't you try to take the best out of that and move forward with the best, rather than move forward with a neutral, if not worse, of a situation?
So
or
it's
a
not really...
situation or a incident, I guess.
So the difference between existentialism versus nihilism is understanding like mainly like the faults, right? It's
Well, I'm saying existentialism versus realism.
And I understand. And at the same time that, and I'll hit you with the hard question at the end after I explain this, is that after that, like, nihilism is obviously looking at the bad part, right? Like a lot of people hear about nihilism and stuff, and the fun thing about looking into nihilism is most of the people that you hear about with nihilism that delve into nihilism understand that nihilism is not the answer. It's just a viewpoint that makes you perceive life in a different point of view, right? Because nihilism, as it states, is the rejection of all religious and all moral principles, and the belief that life is meaningless, right? But at the end of the day, a lot of people that look into nihilism understand that, like, hey, you cannot continue life like this, right? You cannot, right? It's unfathomable, it's impossible, so, and so on and so forth. And so a lot of people that delve into being really nihilistic with their views, they understand later in their life, whether it be a year, 10 years, 20 years down the road, they understand that nihilism isn't the solution to life. So a lot of people that are nihilistic in turn turn into a very different aspect of externalism and it's everything else, because externalism is understanding that you are soul, and it's not just you. We are all human beings with sentient thought and everything else, and that's the point of it, right? Like it's like my first point is stating, like, the Bible wasn't created by somebody that was of a god, right? It wasn't somebody that was a deity. It was somebody that was a man, right? And with all that, we've understood that everything from the Holocaust to everything else was an understanding of something that man did, and it's up to us through history and through everything else to understand that whether this be good or bad for us as a whole.
Okay, so I understand that, but then my counter would be, if nihilism isn't the way to live, if they recognize that that's not the way to move forward, then why accept it in the first place? Why would you waste time assigning yourself with a certain ideological principle when you could be spending that time thinking about realism or optimism?
So you weren't there for it, but I definitely suggest people to look up the what is it? And I know this sounds really weird because I'm bringing it up, but look up the SpongeBob episode. SpongeBob, yes, I'm referencing SpongeBob in this sense, but SpongeBob, it is what, episode 196, right?
Wow, I'm surprised you remember that.
SCP-196, I think it's just
so
SP-196. It's one of the ones where Squidward goes back in time, right? And he sees Patrick and Squidward creating fire for the first time, right? And then he helps them, like, and he's trying to create this, like, reality with them, right? And with that, he's trying to create this stuff because he goes 2,000 years back in time, blah, blah, all this stuff, right? And it's one of the biggest episodes that SpongeBob ever created because it's so influential, because they take a different outlook on...
it's SB129.
SP, sorry, not SCP. I'm referencing something else, and I apologize. SP. SP-19.
No, 129.
SB
I'm
SpongeBob.
fucking retarded. Listen to them, not me.
Future.
SB129. Okay.
Future.
SB129.
There
Okay,
you go.
for the love of God.
So why do you bring up this episode?
So I am bringing up this episode purely because with this episode that with SpongeBob, obviously it has a lot of like funny points on the face of it, right? Like future. And like them catching jellyfishes and them freaking about fire and stuff. That's the first point. But what's influential is at the end of the day, they are talking about how Squidward eventually creates the unknown. He is in nowhere. He is in a state that he doesn't understand where he's at, and he is afraid. He's afraid because it is unbeknownst to him that it's something completely just unfathomable to him, because it is, and he's completely scared of it. He's trying to run and he's trying to find it, but he never finds it, and eventually he breaks through his reality and he comes back to Squidward and SpongeBob, SpongeBob and Patrick, excuse me, my apologies. He eventually comes back to SpongeBob and Patrick through his time, and through the whole time, through that episode, he's constantly carrying his clarinet and everything else to like bring that sense of reality to it, because he's carrying his clarinet because that's something that like brings him to himself, right? That's something that makes him, back to the reality that is himself, because he constantly keeps going in and out of this elevator that brings him in and out of reality, and eventually he's like I'm fine because I'm alone, and then like there's all these echoes of alone, but then he's like, this is wrong, right? Like he doesn't agree with that, so he like tries to find reality, and then he eventually breaks through his quote unquote reality by breaking through the elevator. But then when if he meets back up with SpongeBob and Patrick, what did he learn? He ultimately learned nothing.
Okay, but exactly. So my question to you still is: so I'm assuming that in this analogy, when Squidward goes to that state of this, it's a white screen. It's like alone.
Yeah, and it's all those like shapes and shit. Yeah.
Right. That's the nihilism.
So that's not really nihilism. That's more existentialism, because he's understanding truly that he's alone, right? That he is his own individual, right? And nihilism is him seeing it as a negative.
Okay.
Right.
So
nihilism is you saying like, this sucks and it's going to suck until the day that I die.
So
right.
Right there. Right. So my question then is, I guess to both of you, is why waste your time? Now, we could take this totally in a different direction and talk about mental illness and depression, paranoia, schizophrenia. But I'm talking specifically about your standard individual who does not suffer from those principles. Why willingly choose to exist in that area where you think that that's it, there's nothing better, life sucks, all these things, when at a bare minimum there is realism, which I pretty much operate, I take things at face value and I move forward, or there's optimism where most, if not all things, have a positive spin. Why waste your time and genuine energy existing in the area of nihilism? That's my question.
I think my answer for that, I'm sorry for not talking enough, but my answer for that is because I think humans tend to naturally focus on the negative. Like when you look back on your memories of a situation that happened, 9 times out of 10, you tend to focus on the negative of what happened versus the positive. So I think to go throughout existence and focus on the negative, I think it's easier because we can go, I went through this situation, A, B, and C were wrong. I screwed up in this method, versus actually sitting down and thinking, maybe A, B, and C, I did do wrong, but I also did this right.
Well, that's what I was going to say, is you think that, maybe humans do focus a little bit, or I guess more than they probably should, on the negative, but I would honestly say that humans do focus on the positive, if as much as, if not more than the negative. Because the positive, well, negative can tend to, I feel like, again, this is kind of from social media, I feel like the negative in just mass media, I feel like negative can be easily accessible as time progresses through the 2000s, but the positive will always be there.
Oh, yeah.
Without a doubt. So what I'm saying is, why not extend your resources and extend that genuine bodily energy that all of us have?
Because people are lazy.
So you're saying it's easier to go negative?
Yeah, it's easier to go negative. I generally think that it is, because it requires less energy, because generally when you look at a situation, you can be like, A, B, and C are, I know I said this before, but A, B, and C are bad. And you have to stop and think about it, and you got to go, actually, maybe I did do A, B, and C wrong, but here are the positives of A, B, and C,
Okay.
and go from there.
No, I mean, I kind of get that. And I feel like it's a lot easier maybe to extend yourself to the negative, because the negative emotions are a lot more impactful. And I feel like it's easier, especially, as a child, as an adolescent. You're like, this hasn't happened, that, the other happened on in school, and it made me feel this way and all that, but it's hard to focus on the positive, because I feel like almost, not only as an adolescent, but I guess throughout your life, positive is expected, unless you really get down into a deep, dark corner of realism, or you almost accept nihilism, negative is not expected, right? For the average individual, everyone thinks positive things should happen to them, regardless of effort.
Right.
Right. I feel like, and especially in America, I feel like that's the American assumption is like, hey, I fucking exist, so therefore the bare minimum of good things should be happening to me. And if they don't happen to me, then I'm mad about X, Y, and Z. And when 9 times out of 10, that could probably be attributed to that person's specific actions. So while personally I believe that most people see the positive as an expected, the negatives might stick out easier because it's almost unexpected, or I guess maybe that just stings that much harder. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I myself, like, I see it in a different aspect, because, like, from the point of view of, like anything else, like, we learn no matter what lifestyle you grow up in, it genuinely, and I will talk to literally anybody about this, it genuinely does not matter what lifestyle you grow up in. No matter what, you understand this is that and that is this, right? No matter what, it does not matter your lifestyle of growing up in that. You understand that this is wrong, this is good, right? And it doesn't matter if you grow up in a very, religious household, if you grow up in
but my argument with that is this is that, this, that's basic Judaism, which is very black and white. And
I understand, but hear me out. All
All
I'm
right.
saying, no, you're fine. And all I'm saying is that, like, this is how you were grown up with, right? And it takes time, truly time, to understand that, like, hey, a lot of people, they grow up with that lifestyle, right? Of, like, some people grow up with a very, like, understanding that, hey, the nuclear family is the way to go, right? Some people grow up like, hey,
Hey, sorry to cut you off, Joey. Look up what is the strict definition of nuclear family.
Yeah, please. But no, you're fine. So, like, some people grew up like, hey, nuclear family is like the way to go, right? Like, some people believe that, like, hey, I'm gonna bring my family to church every Sunday. It doesn't matter what their beliefs are. It doesn't matter if they're fucking, it doesn't matter, right? And so with that, what I find interesting is that because of that, some people see that in a negative light, right? Like, I've seen that differently with my aspect of, like, that's one of the reasons why my parents never grew me up in a very religious household, because they didn't want that. They didn't see it as a negative light, but they just wanted me to have more of a freedom to it, right? They wanted me to really make my decision in what I chose, right? Like I said, I went to mass, I went to everything else. I understand Christianity, I understand, I looked into Buddhism and stuff like that, and I've spent a lot of my time just being able to sit there and, like, just meditate. But with that, I've also understood that, like, hey, like, there's good with being wrong, right? Because we're not
that wholeheartedly. Sure.
Yeah, and so there's good with being wrong, and that's why I truly believe in existentialism, because existentialism is understanding that, hey, look, we're all existing in the plane and everything together, and even though that some of us might rise higher than others, right? Some of us obviously gain better powers, some of us are lesser than others, but we're all existing at the same timeline as everyone else, and because of that, you see it as a positive aspect, right? You did this action, right? You did whatever the fuck you did with your life. And I can see it and be like, okay, you did that, so I'm going to do it, but a little bit different, right? And then he can see me completely bystander from everything else. And he can see me seeing you in this black and white view. And he can be like, you know what? That's a little bit weird, right? I'm going to do this a little bit different. And through time, and that's why we've been able, that's why I believe we've been able to evolve, because we've been able to say, like, hey, look, like, this guy ate rotten meat. Let's not do that, right? Like, it's as simple as that, right? In my point of view, right? It's as simple as that, like, and then it evolves into everything else. And, like, that's why I have the viewpoint in the sense of, like, I don't mind people being like, hey, look, like, I know that fucking decimesomorphine is going to eat my skin.
Right.
But
my question for that is, I don't know if there's a definition answer of this, but is there, like, a idealism for trial and error? Because that's what you're describing.
Basically,
it's trial and error.
That's basically
I mean,
what existentialism is, because you're literally observing everybody as a whole.
But my question is there a difference between trial and error versus I'm going to fuck it up. Man. Existentialism.
Yes.
Sure, close enough. So that is my question. We'll wait for Joey to see if he comes up.
That's
with
fine.
anything.
And so what I will say while we're still waiting for that is nihilism is the understanding that life sucks and it's going to suck to the end, right?
But here's the thing. Life doesn't suck. I'm going to be honest with you.
Mm-hmm.
Life doesn't suck. Life itself. Here's my point of view. Obviously, this is my personal point of view. Life doesn't suck. Like, life is full of exponential opportunities. Now, those opportunities vary, and they will end up varying between which
I mean, we have a definition pulled up if you want to look at that, but I don't know if there's
that's existentialism and trial and error. But look, life doesn't suck, and I truly believe that life is full of opportunity, and that opportunity specifically, it'll be varied between, like, if you look at America, right? It'll be varied between the lower class, lower middle class, upper middle, and then high class, and then the fucking all the way to the tippy top, right? And like I was saying a little earlier in part one, life isn't fucking fair, and it's horrible. And I truly believe that those in the upper middle and the upper class and the 1%, I truly believe that they need to adopt that Spider-Man mentality where it's great power comes with great responsibility. They are undoubtedly compelled to help out those who are at the bottom. Now, am I calling for socialism? Not at all. I do not think there should be a necessary cap to what you can attain. Now, there can be a definite argument to those like Jeff Bezos, who have achieved such a exponential amount of money that probably should be regulated here in the next 5 to 10 years, because that money is getting out of fucking hand. I definitely believe that. But what I will say is that you shouldn't fucking go to the doctor, you shouldn't go to the hospital and then be indebted for the rest of your life. I think that's fucking bullshit.
No, I agree with you.
You know what I mean? So with that being said, I think that those at the top and those close to the top need to be doing their very best to help those at the bottom. And if they're not, and when they're not, and they're clearly not, fuck them. Like that, like, let's just assume that radical groups pop up and they start taking out these politicians, specifically politicians that have the ability to shift policy whichever way to help out those who are in need, and they choose not to for personal gain, and they start fucking with them, and whatever way fucking with them comes in, they shouldn't be fucking surprised, because you reap what you sow. If you're being incredibly selfish, you should be more and more expectant to have that taken from you, because you're balancing that scale in your favor so much that you shouldn't be surprised if it gets, tries to get taken from you.
So with that,
wait, I have a question.
No, good. Sorry.
Yeah, no, you're good. My question for you is: you said with great power comes great responsibility, but how do you convince the higher middle class to treat for the lower people?
See, that's the problem. Is that
because I'm gonna be honest, if I'm a rich billionaire, like, why the fuck should I give it?
It's very hard to.
Yeah.
It's very, very hard to. And obviously, I'm speaking from a position of I don't even have $100,000.
Yeah.
I don't have $10,000, right? I'm nowhere close to that. So it's very easy for me to adopt that mindset of, hey, they should be helping out people at the bottom, right?
Right.
So, and I also see those people that have the millions of billions of trillions of dollars, and I'm like, hey, fuck them.
Mm.
But me at the bottom, I could not imagine what to do with that amount of money. Now, I also recognize that what they're valued at is not necessarily what they have in the bank. It's in trusts, it's in investments, it's in stock, it's in blah, 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 right? It's in a bunch of property things, right? Not necessarily fucking hard cash. I understand that. But what I am saying is that, like, there was a study done towards the beginning of the pandemic, and it was like every billionaire in America could give every American, and see if you can find the statistic, but every billionaire in America could distribute to those that were like getting like the stimulus checks, like the $75,000. They could give every one of them like $10,000 and still be chilling.
Yeah.
So it's like, if let's assume that study is true, or studies like that are true. If you're able to enter that realm where you can give tens of 50s of millions of people that amount of money, and you're still hanging out, and you're not going to worry about where your income's coming from, I don't understand how you don't have that obligation to help out to the bottom. Because my opinion is, if you want a better country, if you want to have the best country in the world, it is imperative that you have the minimal amount of losers on this country, or on the planet. Yeah. Let's be real. People that are impoverished, people that cannot feed themselves, people that cannot fucking clothe themselves, people that are not employable, they are losers.
No, I understand. Being in the medical field, we experience that all the time. Because we work with a lot of homeless people.
Yeah, so by the societal definition, they are the losers of society. So therefore, if you want to have the best country on the planet, which all these fucking politicians and all these fucking billionaires claim they want, you need to create the most amount of winners as humanly possible. That seems to me to be an intrinsic fact, and I have not found an argument against that. Because if you take the amount of losers or amount of winners in a country, and you just fucking subtract and create more losers, you therefore create a losing country. Because a country, in theory, with obvious exceptions like the Russians and the Chinese and the North Koreans, it is a sum of a populace, right? And that's why, up until a recent couple of statements that he made, I was backing so hard Andrew Yang. Because what Andrew Yang brought forward during the presidential debates when they were going up against Trump, they still weren't sure of who they were going to bring forward. He brought forward that we need to change GDP altogether. We can't base GDP of strictly the housing market and the fucking the earning points of the average American and so on and so forth. We need to base it on what the average American is making, but also, if you have a stay-at-home mom, she's putting in work with the kids, but she's not making money. But that's inherent work, right? Especially so they have disabilities. That's inherent work, and so on and so forth. So if you can find a way to make a GDP for that type of work, for the generic happiness of the country, right? So lowering the suicide rates, like we just saw, lowering or hiring the education rates, like we just saw, right? Adding all of that to your new GDP, quote unquote, that should be the way that you wager your country. That should be the way that you measure your country, not just by a strict dollar.
What I will say is that what founded us was purely on like the ideal of capitalism and understanding that, like, you know, freedom to be able to do as you please, right, and be able to obviously, like, you know, everything else that came with it, right? And so I obviously don't have a lot of reference material to this because, Lord forbid, we've been talking for quite a while. But what I will say is that at the end of the day, that's what's interesting about existentialism versus like nihilism is like nihilism is people that are just like And most nihilistic people are seeing in a negative aspect because they're just there in the sense of like, life sucks and then you die, right? That's basically how nihilistics see life. But with existentialism person is that like, hey, look, like at the end of the day, we're human, right? We're the first species on this earth to be able to be like, hey, look, this is right, this is wrong, right? We're the first people to be able to say like, this is right, this is wrong. And like, obviously, like some things are wrong, like, fucking other animals and stuff, they understand like fucking beating other animals and killing them, they understand that that's wrong, right? Like some animals go with only one mate for the rest of their life, right? And even some reptiles, stuff like that, right? And what's interesting because of that is that we're left here, right? We're left here as the only sentient beings on this planet that we know, right? And what I love about it is that like we are set here to be able to be like, yeah, this is the actions that have come from us. And then you can read into all of the stuff of like, and I like looking at everything of like, history is written by those who have won and stuff like that. Like I love quotes like that because it makes you think. It really makes you think because, history isn't written by the people that lost, right? It's really written by people that won. And with that, like, obviously, because of who we had developed to be, we're like, hey, look, like, and that developed into a lot of everything else that developed into us allowing, like, and I'm not trying to make this a very fucking race sexist thing, but like, women's rights came up like less than 100 years ago.
Yeah.
Right? And that's been a huge impact of it. And and I don't care how you look at it. That's a huge impact, right? Huge impact. Well, and we compounded on that purely because a lot of us started having different outlooks in life, right?
Well, it sucks that we had to fucking like fight. Not we as men. I'm sure men did fight back then when the women's suffrage was happening. Mm-hmm. But like, it sucks we had to get to there. Because like me as a person, I've never seen a woman as lesser. I never understood that.
But thankfully, you grew up in that environment to see her in that aspect.
Yeah, like people before you.
Right, no,
people
right.
before you have worked to get to this point.
And that's what I'm saying. And that's what I'm saying, is that it sucks we had to fucking get to there. Because at the end of the day, we're all fucking human.
Yeah.
We're all the same species.
Yeah. And that's what's great. That's why I love looking at life and like you said that like, in like Christianity and stuff and like looking in light and stuff, but there is a sense of like dare I say being completely just like unbeknownst to the other side, right? Completely just not even accepting the other side. I believe that you need to understand that, look, this is bad. Taking the life of another person is bad, right? Because you're taking their and I know this is very American with my statement. I believe that taking somebody's life is taking like their freedom, right? Because that's taking what's ultimately that's taking what they could the next day they could choose to fucking spend their life to devote to fucking whatever. It doesn't matter. Still, like apparently like that's one of the things I believe in. But at the same time, like I also believe in like, hey, this person, if they want to fucking do crack, like black tar heroin for the rest of their life, fucking so be it. That's his life, right? And that's just how I believe it. But still, what I'm saying is that at the end of the day, I like people to have their ultimate freedom, to have understanding of like, this is that and that is this, right? Because that ultimately makes us better as a whole, because instead of just seeing a statistic as, only the lower class are affected by this, and like one or twos of like the the middle and the high class, you see it as a whole because everything's now equal to everybody, right?
Well, then that just goes back to my part that's bringing up in part one of the freedom of your consciousness. Mm-hmm. The individual must have that.
Yeah.
That nothing but strengthens my position. Like, yeah, stuff like black tar heroin, crack cocaine, methamphetamine, that will damage you, obviously. But like, the state should not have a control of how you treat your consciousness.
So,
because look, not every meth addict will go out and murder someone.
No.
Right?
No. So
we have laws against it.
Honestly, you're. I'm not trying to cut you off because like you're kind of seeing in a different aspect. But what I'm saying is that like genuinely, people being able to see this in a different aspect, you need, right? Like Christianity, you understand this is the devil, right? Like in Christianity, you understand this is sins, right? Greed, lust, gluttony, so on and so forth, right? You understand these are sins, right? You understand that, right? And by understanding this is a negative, you can therefore see more positive in life, right? You can therefore be able to understand that, like, hey, look, like, hey, you know what? I do lust, right? Like you can take that self-understanding of yourself and be like, hey, you know what? I do lust a lot, right? And so by understanding, like if you lust, if you greed, if you're very prideful, if you're very fucking, envious, so on and so forth, it doesn't matter. These are all building blocks of people before us that we can be able to be like, hey, look, like, you know what? If I'm very prideful, I can talk to my friends and be like, hey, look, I get it. I talk about myself a lot. Can you guys help me improve myself, right? I'm very slothful, right? Like I have a problem getting up in the morning, right? I have a problem getting up and being able to like exercise and stuff. And that's something that you have from the predecessors before us to be able to sit there and be like, hey, these people were just like me. Obviously, we have different things. We have fucking technology. We have all this stuff. We're able to record this. We're able to fucking write only kings and stuff in their memory. But because of that, it's because of their actions before us, right? And who is us to say that the actions that they did, the existence that they did is wrong? And that's why I truly believe in existentialism, because existing is purely in the sense of like we are saying that we are here, right? And it doesn't matter the sense of what happened before us. It doesn't matter if they were good or bad. It is up to us. It is up to us, the people that are here in the present, to understand the past and understand what is going to happen in the future from the actions that we take, to be able to say like, look, yes, I'm solid believer, like obviously genocide's bad and everything else. Like I'm all for that, absolutely. But still to be able to be like, hey, look, this is bad. We can say, hey, this is bad. I agree with this. This is something that we should not happen. And because of that, that's what built us to what we are now. And that's why we're able to sit here and be like, hey, we have this discerning conflict because I grew up in a very religious aspect of life, right? I grew up in a very, like, we should be very holy from the get-go. But still, like, I mean, you even said it to me, like, one of the gentlemen that died at the cross next to Jesus went to heaven, right? And I'm all for, like, I love to hear about people believing of, like, the higher deity and stuff, and be able to, like, him believing, like, he has a choice in that and stuff. And I mean, that's part 3 of this fucking podcast. Yeah. But still, like, we're able to be there and be like, hey, like, yeah, he did that because of this, right?
So
like,
you almost say.
Wait, can I add something to this?
Yeah.
This podcast. So the analogy that I've been told of religion, which I honestly believe is, I don't know if y'all ski, but it's like a ski slope, right? Like all religion starts at the same point and it diverts off on different routes. But at the end of the day, you look at different religions and you see that, Christianity and Judaism and Buddhism all have parts of the same piece. So, I honestly believe...
So I disagree with that because, so you look at... so let's take Christianity and Satanism.
All right.
Right? So at the core, Satanism is the absolute foil, right? It's Christianity, we believe that there is a God above us, right? There is a God that created all of this. All of that is by his design, right? And Satanism believes that, okay, we're here. It kind of takes a piece out of existentialism. We're here, and we exist, and God is within himself, or with ourselves, right? You are the God of your own life. You control your own life. You control your own destiny. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
The only thing is like that only stemmed from what? Originally, Adam and Eve, right? They were pure, right? They were the only things, right? And what stemmed from them is eventually them, and excuse me, I don't know exactly, but like them as a whole, like they chose to incorporate bad things in their life, right?
So yes,
they opened everything else, right?
So
Blah blah, right?
Eve made the decision to sin. Adam went along with it. They were cast out of the Garden of Eden, and that casts sin into the world, and that brings God into the equation. Yes. However,
the only question I have is, at that point, before or after that decision that Adam and Eve had, were they pure beforehand?
They were pure.
Or were they pure after?
They were absolute pure beforehand. But
interesting.
But the thing is that they were given a choice. That is the point. Do you stay?
But did they truly understand that point beforehand? Yes. Are you sure about that? Did they truly understand that the second that they bit into that apple?
Okay, yes. So obviously myself, I don't know because A, I'm not a religious scholar, and B, I wasn't fucking there. Mm-hmm. But by most accepted doctrine, yes, they did understand. Now, because they had God walking among them. God walked among them in the Garden of Eden. So yes, they did know, right? But they were still given that free will. That is God's choice. Because yes, God, because that's the God of the New Testament, or the Old Testament, I apologize. God of the Old Testament is very much a jealous God.
Yeah.
However, he gives his people a choice. And if they chose against, they get the consequence. Mm-hmm. But if they choose with, they get also the consequence. So, that is why when you look at Satanism, they are the complete opposite, right? They are, God is with ourselves, we choose our own destiny. Now, you look at Buddhism. I don't know a whole lot except for the surface level of Buddhism. But from what I know is that what makes the difference, a stark difference between Christianity and Buddhism, is that in Christianity, yes, Jesus came down to earth, he became a man. God became man, became the Son of God, right? But God was still there. Buddhism started with Buddha, and Buddha was a man. That never started at a God figure. It is a God who aspired to be man. And that is what also differentiates Buddhism from Christianity, Scientology, Christianity, say that dude named Ron, whatever his fucking name was, right? All these religions that start with a man, that inherently differentiated it from Christianity. Now, from what I know, Judaism differentiates itself from Christianity because Judaism is from the Jewish specific sect of Christianity. Whereas, and when you have the New and the Old Testament, when they split, right? The stark difference amongst a few is that in the New Testament, God and Jesus, which is God become man, they begin to accept, or he begins to accept everybody, right? Everybody can be a follower of God. Whereas in the Old Testament, it was only the Jewish people. But when Jesus comes to earth, Jesus comes to accept all of mankind and all who would follow him, right? So, the Jewish leaders at the time, again, I'm not really a scholar by any means, but from what I understand, is with the Judaic Jewish scholars at the time, when they saw Jesus and they saw the rhetoric that he was proposing, which is not only do the Jewish individuals get to be the children of God. I forget the terminology. It starts with a G. The Gentiles. The Gentiles also are allowed to be children of God. And the Gentiles is everybody outside of Judaism, right? Everyone can be accepted into Christianity. And that still continues on to today, right? So, that made the very strict and scholarly Jewish leaders mad inherently, right? Obviously. So why the fuck did my ancestors get fucking wiped out if he's gonna fucking accept everybody anyway, right? It's kind of fucked up. That's what they saw. So therefore, Judaism sparked out of that, and they rejected the Gentiles. And they're like, okay, Judaism accepts, from what I know, the Jewish sect of people and the people that accept their specific beliefs. And everyone else, they can fall under Christianity and the Baptists and the Presbyterians and the da-da-da-da-da, or they can fall under myself, which I'm non-denominational. And that's partly under my personal belief system and out of personal laziness. Because I don't want to learn about what a specific Presbyterian is or a Baptist is. I just know that I fucking believe in God and believe in Jesus. That's why I fucking believe it, right? Mm-hmm. So that's your specific separation between your traditional Christianity and your Judaism. So the point I'm trying to bring up is really, with the exception of Judaism, and maybe like the fucking flying spaghetti monster and other people that believe in a fucking God, other religions really believe in a man that became God rather than God always being God and eventually became man to save man. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So one thing I love about that, right, and that's one thing that I kind of thought about a lot when I was growing up and stuff, right, like, is that, but is it the sense of like sitting there and be able to see somebody as like somebody that became God, somebody that was God, or ultimately are you looking for somebody to sit there and humble yourself? And like, I love that, and I love thinking about this to this day, because like I'm obviously not a very Christian dude, but like I love referencing like, you know, the 7 deadly sins and everything else, because it's like, you know what, like there's been thousands of years that has been written about the 7 deadly sins. There's been thousands of years that have been written about like everything else, right? And so who are us, right? Some fucking 20-year-old sacks of shits to be able to be like, that's wrong, right? Like ultimately that is, you know, history is written by the processor, right? But we can sit here and we have had all this history, right? And it's not expected for us to read fucking every goddamn book in fucking existence, right? But we can sit here and be like, hey, look, like they went through this, right? They were able to go through this crusade. They were able to go through this, but still, like, obviously, as we learn through history goes on, that, you know, history isn't exactly precise, but that's what makes it interesting for us in the present, right? Because history is not precise, right? The history of what, you know, people back in the 80s believed that we would have fucking flying cars. We'd be flying fucking beautifully now, right? But here we are in fucking 2020, sitting in a fucking virus, epidemic, whatever you want to call it. And it's like crippling the fucking economy, right? And because of that, you know, it's something that I find very interesting, because at the end of the day, the only thing that you know is true is the thoughts that are within yourself, right? Everything else, from the thoughts to the emotion that you feel, can be perceived in a different way, right? And that's why I very truly believe in that aspect of that. We are very, you know, not very nihilistic, but existentialism. I can never say that right. And it's funny that I'm vouching for them and I can never say it right. But existentialism basically is just saying that, like, you exist purely. And I love that aspect of it. Like, I love talking my stories. I love everything else about it. And I love being able to say, like, you know, I've gone through this because of blah, 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 right? But at the end of the day, like, this is just my story. And somebody can hear me and they can sit there and be like, hey, fuck you, I'm going to spite you, because I live out of spite myself. Somebody can say, like, hey, fuck you, I'm going to spite you, and live the rest of life for that. And that's cool. But
man after his own heart. But
yeah, I know. But still, like, I can sit here and be like, I still gave my point of view, right? I still gave, hey, like, this is how I perceive this and that. I mean, you've given yourself, I mean, and so has Josiah and everything else. We've both been like, hey, look, like, this is how we perceive it and stuff. And that's what the best part is that we can sit here and be like, hey, look, we're all individuals. We're all different people. and we all perceive life in a different way, and we can all be able to be like, hey, look, like, you know what? Obviously, me and you don't agree on everything, but like, you know what? We agree on most things.
Yeah.
And that's one of the main reasons why me and you became friends. That's one of the major reasons why me and Josiah became friends and stuff like that. Like, that's one of the major reasons why with that. But it's still, at the end of the day, we can sit here and we can have conversations like that. Fucking Joey can fucking fact check us and everything else, you know, and everything else. Because we can sit here and be like, hey, look, like, at the end of the day, you're fucking wrong, bitch. Like, stats say you're a fucking communist. You know what I mean? Or whatever, right? Like, it doesn't matter. Like, we can sit here and be like, hey, fuck you. You can suck my ass. And we can be like, okay, yeah, you're right. And with that, it builds a lot, because instead of in the past of like where we like developed ourselves and everything else, we can sit there and we can be like, hey, look, like, you know what? We're in a time that we can be able to be like, okay, I want to hear your side of the story, right? I want to be able to hear this versus that versus this, and because there's so many goddamn layers, right?
And that's
Wait, I have a question for you, Briscoe.
Yeah.
Do you think that now, because we're in the modern age, that because now, due to technology developing, that we have the ability, due to technology, we can hear the other side? Because if you look throughout history, a lot of times the conflicts got, started, War of 1812.
So can I answer that?
By all means,
I will only ask, what is your definition of the other side? That's all I'll ask.
An opposing force.
An opposing
So
force.
here's why I say that.
Somebody with afflicting ideals.
A absolute flamboyant example, truth be told, is Joe Rogan.
Okay.
He is the perfect example of that, because he has managed through genuine happenstance. Now, granted, he started out with a leg up on a lot of other people in the podcasting industry, because first of all, he started it before it was an industry. A. B. He started out having famous people that are famous today as friends, so that carried it with him. B. He fucking became a commentator for UFC, the biggest fighting corporation on the face of the fucking earth. And also, he is also one of the biggest stand-up comedians we have right now. For whatever reasons, he's not like recognizes that, but he is one of the biggest stand-up comedians we have right now. And he is friends with the likes of Tom Segura, Bill Burr, Dave fucking Chappelle, the greatest stand-up comedian we have ever had. I will argue that to the day I die, that Dave Chappelle is the greatest stand-up comedian. He beats Richard Pryor. He beats Steve Martin. He beats all of them. He is the greatest stand-up comedian we've ever fucking had. And he is best friends with Joe Rogan. And what Joe Rogan has managed to do is he has managed to sit down and have a long form. Because look, 5 years ago and on, people don't want long form entertainment, quote unquote, that's not a fucking flashy, big, action-packed movie or a slapstick comedy. They don't want that, right? They haven't wanted that. But what Joe Rogan proved otherwise is that you can sit down like this and have an intelligent conversation that is compelling. And as long as the subject matter is relevant and the people having the conversation genuinely believe in that conversation, regardless of the education level, as long as they believe in that conversation and they are putting good, solid input, right, into that conversation, people want to hear that. For the very basic reason that people want to know they're not alone, right? That's a very basic human thing. People want to know that they are not alone, whether it is physically or in their beliefs, whatever it is, right? So you bring up, can you talk to the opposing force? 100%. Now, before Joe Rogan moved on to Spotify, when he was on YouTube and all other platforms, he actually spoke with the leader of the Proud Boys.
No way.
It's on YouTube. Well,
No way.
It might not be on YouTube anymore, but he did, and I watched it. It was a good conversation because At the time, the leader of the Proud Boys, he was a stand-up comedian. He was a small-time actor, and he became leader of the Proud Boys. And he had absolutely no intention of being a white supremacist. That movement took over and started leaning more towards that white supremacy movement, and he stepped away from it. But Joe Rogan, he has shown that you can sit down with anyone you fucking want as long as you work hard enough and you get the platform that is necessary. Like, I've said it on multiple of my episodes. I know you know this because you watch them. God bless you. Because the audio
Rest in peace.
Because the audio has been fucking iffy.
And it's fine. I mean, like, if you watch from the beginning to end, like by the probably the time that this is like casted, especially since this is like part 2 or whatever the fuck it is.
It's a lot better.
Oh my god, it has, and like in and of itself, you should definitely watch from there to now to be able to perceive what the quality has come to.
Yeah, so,
sorry.
So, no, you're good. No, that's like, a good point. My point is like,
shout out because I fucking love you, bitch.
So I've said it on multiple episodes. I would absolutely welcome the opportunity as long as I can guarantee my safety. Because again, I am a Hispanic male.
Mm-hmm.
I would absolutely welcome the opportunity to sit down with a white supremacist or any supremacist of that matter, right? And honestly, just open up the podcast like I did with you guys. I wouldn't be confrontational. I wouldn't be angry. I wouldn't be mean about it. But I would genuinely just get to the point, like I did with the individual that uses OnlyFans. Mm-hmm. I would get right to the point, have a nice conversation, and after a couple of seconds, like, why?
I mean, in your defense, we didn't really have a point for myself and Piersee.
Exactly.
So, and
it's been chaos the whole time.
But this hypothetical individual.
I'm just saying, I'm just letting it be known that there wasn't really a point for this because in case it's something that comes up.
Yeah, with this hypothetical individual, I would like to be able to sit down and just ask why.
No,
right? Like,
and I think that makes you the better man compared to most people in society because most people go, you know, I'm going to slam my fist on the table, but like most people are like, I'm right and I don't give a fuck about what you think. But nowadays, since we have technology, I feel like more people are open to suggestions. And I think it's great that, you know, you're doing this podcast and that you're willing to sit down with, you know, people who may not have the same view as you, but, you know, you're still willing to sit down. I feel like that's better than most people.
Well, thank you. And yeah, that's my ultimate goal is like, don't get me wrong. I love that my series, say it gets that far. My series premieres with Joey. We had a great fucking time. That was a lot of fun, right? And then I moved on and I did other episodes. And I get to do it this, but this was like an amazing mixture of fun and serious conversation, right? But like, I feel like moving forward I love laughing my ass off and talking a bunch of bullshit with my friends. I want to see other viewpoints and I want to understand why these people think this way, and that's why I want to do it. And I think with what you ended with is a very beautiful point, is that you and I are best friends. We agree on a lot of things, but we also disagree on a few things, but that's okay. So I would gladly lay my life down for this dude. He's a good guy. And I love this guy, right? So, and that's why I'm here doing this show, doing this podcast, is because unless I love hanging out with my buddies, I want to figure out how people think the way they think. And with that being said, I think over 4 hours of content, I think we have a good idea of the both of you. Now, what I will say is that this won't be the last time. And whether it's over Zoom or in person, whenever you guys manage to make it out of Alaska, because I know that snow could be fucking, pretty shitty.
Shout out to me fucking sweating off my fucking plane because I went from negative 20 to fucking 60 goddamn degrees.
Yeah, so
fuck this winter. You guys don't know shit. I'm shouting out to literally all the lower 40 fucking 8 states. You guys don't know.
Winter is nothing. Y'all are bitches.
Yeah, winter's coming.
So whenever you guys make it down to the Continental, I mean, Lord provided that things work out.
A year or so, it's...
Yeah, that things will...
Shout out to our job.
Yeah, things work out that I won't speak about on camera, but Lord forbid that works out and I'll be able to fly you guys in. We'll definitely do this again, because this is, without a doubt, my favorite episode.
Good. No, I'm glad you think that.
And
I feel bad because
No,
I haven't talked much.
No, you contributed though. You did.
Yeah, but I mean, shout out to Briscoe being the fucking that he is. He's got all these.
I have so many more stories.
Yeah, he's got all these stories, and
Dude, we didn't even touch Alaska stories. We didn't touch comic books. We didn't barely touch film. There's a lot of things we can talk about here.
Yeah.
And I love you guys for that. But for now, we're inching up on an hour. Actually, 3, 1. Oh, that's an hour right there. So we've came up on an hour. I want to thank you guys very much for being here, taking time out of your PTO to be here. I really do appreciate it. And I absolutely cannot wait to have you guys back on. What?
If you nod your head, it is something that you will regret.
What?
Don't nod your head.
Okay, well, I'm going to end it right here, I guess. You fucking weirdo.
Piersee knows what's going to happen.
Thank you guys for being here. Thank you guys for watching.
It's been long enough. Cadito ego sum.
just stare. Let's do a staring contest.
So what he just said is, I think that's a very good way to end this conversation. Cogito ergo sum, which means I think, therefore I am. I think that's a very good way to end this conversation. Absolutely. I think it's a very good sum of this, sum of all fears almost. I think it's a very good way to end this conversation. I thank you guys very much for being here. I thank Joey for being on the computer. I'll definitely have you back for tomorrow. We have our next episode. And this has truly been an honor. Thank you guys very much. Thank you guys for watching and listening. And we'll see you guys next time. Have a good night.